Wow, good evening and welcome back to the safe space with Bobo Nene. I am so glad that we have this opportunity to be together once more. So today, my heart is with widows whose lives often come to a standstill when caring for terminally ill husbands. So I would like us to look at the impact of a husband's death to a widow that assumed the role of caregiving. One of the most devastating impacts a widow may face is the quiet erosion of identity, a slow fading self that begins long before her husband passes on. When caregiving becomes a center of your world, especially over a long period of time, like months or years, it does not just shape your daily life. It redefines who you are. The role consumes everything: your time, your energy, your emotions, even your personality. You stop being yourself and become your husband's caregiver. And then one day, that role comes to an end. Not with a thank you, but with a funeral. Suddenly, you are not only grieving the man you loved, you are grieving the person you became in the process of caregiving. Your purpose, your rhythm, your every sense of self disappears. When what is left behind is not just sorrow, but a profound question: who am I now? You see, when we look at the example of Job, in Job 1 verse 1 to 3, while Job's story does not center around caregiving, it powerfully illustrates what it feels like to lose everything that once defined you. Before his trials, Job was known for who he was and what he had. He was a righteous man, a respected leader, a provider, a priest for his household, a man deeply rooted in purpose and position. His identity was wrapped up in his blessings, his responsibilities, and the roles he fulfilled in society. And then suddenly, those roles were gone. The loss was not just physical, it was deeply personal. He did not just lose his wealth, his family. He lost the version of himself that existed in those roles. In the same way, a widow who has spent months or even years caring for her terminally ill husband often experiences a similar sense of losing self. Each day, your sense of worth was affirmed in the small but significant acts of managing medications, managing your husband's pain, fighting for him in hospital corridors, and being praised for your tireless devotion. Every task felt purposeful. Every small success, like easing his pain or seeing him through another day, gave you a life direction. His survival was your mission. His comfort was your calling. And as long as he was there, you felt needed, you felt seen and defined. But when he passes on, you are not just mourning his loss, you are mourning the loss of an identity that caregiving gave you. Just like Job, you are left asking, who am I now that everything I lived for is no longer here? This was your primary role. Everything else became secondary. You were responsible for the physical and medical management of your husband's life. And when he dies, the task list disappears. But what we need to understand is that the internal mandate to be the indispensable manager still remains. And now that your husband has passed on, that mandate becomes meaningless. And this is where the problem begins for many widows. Because you see, losing your husband equals to losing a job, so to speak. All of a sudden, you feel unemployed. Your highest calling, your life of taking care of your husband has ended. When your caregiving work finally comes to an end, when exhaustion steps in, when you feel lost, this is exactly the moment God's grace steps in to tell you two simple, powerful truths. The first one being, your worth is permanent and not temporary. You see, the years you spend pouring out your life, those years were not wasted. They were seen and honored by God. You are still loved, you are valued, and completely accepted by Him, not for what you did or your works or your performance, but for who you are, His child. Your value did not die with your husband. You do not have to sort of like unpause your life on your own strength. God's grace becomes your new fuel. It is the promise that His strength is enough in your weakness. You can start resting in His care and allow Him to gently show you the path to a new purpose, a purpose built on rest and not on effort. To every woman who feels paralyzed today, remember this truth. Your heart-shattering fear that your future is empty without your husband is a lie. Your inheritance, dedicated caregiving, was temporary. It was an earthly anchor. And when that anchor is lifted, you felt lost at sea. But the good news is that your life was not defined by your earthly anchor. It was defined by divine promise. The grace of God assures you that the years you gave were not lost. They were counted for. They secured an inheritance of hope that is far greater than the life you left behind. Just as Ruth's small, faithful service was honored by God, your love is recorded as service to Him, according to Hebrews 6:10. You are loved and valued, not for what you did, but for who you are. You are free to surrender that heavy, collapsed identity and step into a new life secured by God's sustaining life. So, as we come to an end this evening, here are simple, practical, grace-filled ways you can begin to implement that can assist you to move from the identity of caregiver to the identity of beloved and purposed. Number one, start with a 5-minute self-claim practice. Remember that you lost the habit of choosing for yourself while you were a caregiver. So try to start every morning by choosing one small thing for yourself, by doing the next best thing for yourself. Start the day by spending time with God. Play a specific song that you like, or even take a walk around your neighborhood so that, you are able to have time to yourself. This is not selfish. It is practicing the belief that your needs and your desires are valid. It trains your heart to shift from what does he need to what does God want for me today. Number 2, redefine quiet time as rest and not as work. Your time with God was likely spent praying for the healing of your husband or for your own strength to cope. Now redefine that. Stop asking for things in your prayer closet and just sit and learn to sit in silence for a while with God. He says, my grace is sufficient for you. Let your prayer be one of surrender, allowing God's peace to fill the empty spaces left by your exhaustion. Last but not least, adopt a Ruth-like microservice mentality. Your hands miss having a purpose. Find one small, manageable, non-critical act of service for someone else, preferably outside your immediate family. It could be, by you volunteering at your church or at a nearby school, or writing an encouraging note to someone. This low-stake service reminds you that you are still capable and that your selfless instinct can now be channeled towards a renewed God-given mission. So therefore, this evening, I'd like to encourage you to go forward in certainty that your best days are not yet over. Your best days are only ahead of you, but they are already secured by a hope that death itself cannot touch. Thank you for joining me today. Be sure to subscribe and to share this podcast with someone walking through the journey of widowhood. And join us next time as we continue together. Goodbye, and remember, let grace step in at every stage of your journey.